Good morning. I was remarking about the table set. I have to say, thrifting is a wonderful way to upcycle material. And one of our Dharma friends from the Athens KTC said, could you use these tables that I have? I was going to give them to Goodwill. And it's like, no, give them to us instead. And so these little cherry wood occasional tables have come in. We've used them for just about everything here. Anything that has to do with the shrine, we have a table that size, so it's very nice. So in any case, enough about furniture. I want to welcome all of you and thank all of you for being here today. And thank you for your continued support of your own Dharma practice and your support of the meditation practice, not just of yourself, but for others. Every time I come into the center on a Sunday and look through the window and on the doors and see people sitting here together in silence, I think of the strength. I do. I think of the strength that people give one another just by silently sitting together. And I want to thank you for being part of that, because human beings, when we get together, we can be what some people call force multipliers. We can multiply our impact, and being able to do negative things is one way we multiply our force, but the other way is through doing positive things. So I just needed to say, thank you and for being part of that. Today I wanted to talk about indecisiveness, which may or may not be a problem and challenge for you, but has been for me. And because there's so much going on in the world these days, we have so many decisions to make, moment by moment by moment. It's so much going on. And we may not know whether we are equipped. We may not feel equipped to make decisions, whether they're momentous ones about what is our next job going to be, or what are we going to do in our family, or whatever. It's momentous decisions as well as in, do I really want to go to this place or to do this thing, and so on. We can go from the big to the small. And so I thought it would be fun to talk about that a bit as to what meditation does for indecisiveness, because there is an impact, and I'll be interested in talking about any decisions you may be facing. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But to begin with, we always start with a statement of intention, which on our little page here begins with a refuge prayer. This is a very common Buddhist statement of intention. We state our intention before we undertake a class, before we undertake meditation, before we undertake just about anything. We make a statement of our intentions. And the highest of these intentions is to become like the Buddha, an awakened being. And the highest motivation is to do it for the benefit of others, not just for our own benefit. So we'll recite this 2 times in the English language, and then a 3rd time in Tibetan, which was the language this prayer was written in. So we'll do that. We'll start with the words in the Buddha. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. Okay, so now I'll recite it in Tibetan. O Sanjay Chudang Soji Chonamla Jang Chu Pardu Dani Kyap Suchi Daji Jin Soji Be Sunam Ki Trola Penshir Sanjay Druparsho. Okay, thanks very much. And I'll start with a short prayer of my own, and then we'll begin. O Palden Sawelam Harimboche Tagi Chior Pede Ten Shala Kadrin Jembo Gwaneche Sunte Kusum Tugging Utrup Sal Tuso. Okay. The title for today's talk is What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. This particular title is one I stole from my dear friend, Kim Miracle, because when we experienced the loss of our building in 2016, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know how we were going to recover from the building being destroyed by fire. But luckily, Kim was standing on the other side of the street, watching the fire trucks douse the building with water. And she was on the phone with our founding teacher, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. And he said, don't waste your time on being sad. Yes, this is tragic, and yes, it's painful. But he said, don't be sad. Don't waste your time on sadness. He said, put your energy into rebuilding the building. Put your energy into that. And so immediately in that moment, he made a decision for us, essentially, which was to rebuild our building. And the next month, when I went to see him at our home monastery in upstate New York in Woodstock, he gave me a pile of envelopes that he had been given at the end of a teaching, when the dana, or the generosity to the teacher, is given in the form of money in envelopes. He took the entire pile of envelopes, not knowing what was in them, and put them in a bag and said, you're taking these are for you to use for the building. And he said, oh, and by the way, he said, make the next building bigger. So we had two instructions. Don't be sad, rebuild it, and make the next one bigger. And so Kim has often said that we should write a book called What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do, because that was what it was like to go through the process of tearing down what was left of the building after the fire, and then working through the maze of rules, first with the insurance company to make the claims, and then with the city government for the demolition, and then with other entities trying to find temporary space. And each step we just kept taking. We just kept taking each step that was the next right thing to do. And so that's how we got here. We just kept taking what we felt was the next right step. We were very fortunate in that Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche was living at that time. He passed away in 2019, just a few years before this building was completed, in 2022, if I remember correct. I think 2022 was when this building opened. And so as a result, he didn't get to see the finished product, although 1 week before he died, the very first architect who worked on this design, he ended up not being able to be part of the project at the end because his license did not cover work in the state of Ohio. But another architect took his plans and created what we are sitting in today. And he met the other architect as it happened, because he was visiting the monastery. The other architect was visiting the monastery. And Rinpoche did not know that this man was no longer our architect. He didn't know. And, but the guy was a pro. The guy was a real pro, because Rinpoche said to him, he said, "Promise me," he said, "that the pillars will be in the shrine room, and that the ceiling will be flat like the ceiling at KTD Monastery, and that we'll have all the beautiful appointments and so forth." And the guy didn't say, "Not my job, man." You know, he didn't say that. He said, "Sir, it will be exactly as you wish. It will be done exactly as you wish." Because I had just talked to him the night before, the architect, and said, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're going to do all the things, you know." And Rinpoche wanted assurance, and so we gave him the assurance. Isn't that wild? You know, it was his idea to rebuild it, and his idea of what he wanted it to look like, and we were able to reassure him that it would be done exactly as he wished. And he passed away pretty much exactly 1 week later. So he had it in his mind what it looked like, and it looks like his vision has now been realized. The reason I bring him up and the title of the talk is because there are times when you don't know what to do, when disaster strikes, and we have no idea which steps we're going to take. Or maybe it's just that uncertainty has hit us. Is this the right decision, or is that the right decision? And in our experience here at Columbus KTC, we knew we could always rely on Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, because in our eyes, at his advanced age, he was very wise. He had been around the block, so to speak, and even though he was raised in an agrarian society in a Himalayan nation thousands of miles away from us, he was a very pragmatic person. He had his feet firmly planted on the ground and he knew a lot about a lot. And we could pretty much always trust whatever he would tell us. And when we didn't, we found out later he was right. I mean, it was, you know, but somehow he always knew the exact right thing to do, the exact right thing to say, how to work with other people who were easy, people who were difficult. He was able to work with everything and everyone. And one time we asked him, "What's your secret?" And he said, "Oh, patience. Patience is my secret." He said, because he said, "I have found in my life that you can overcome everything and everyone with patience." Well, that's great, but we don't have that kind of patience. We want results, and we want them quickly if we can get them. And we would like to have had them yesterday if we can have them. So I guess we have something to work on in order to be like Khenpo Rinpoche and be able to make decisions and choices based on our patience. So decisions, what will we do? How do we make them? Because we lack the things that he had. We lack wisdom, and we lack skill. Those are the two things he really had. He was wise and he was skilled. So he not only knew what to do, he knew how to do it. And it's just kind of amazing. And in fact, even now, I think about the one mystery he left us. I've spoken about this before, which is the large Buddha in the center of our shrine is the Buddha Shakyamuni, but not in a way that you're used to seeing the Buddha Shakyamuni. You're used to seeing the Buddha Shakyamuni sitting in monk's robes. Very simple monk's robes with his left hand sitting in his lap holding a begging bowl. which was symbolic of his renunciation, and his hand touching the earth beneath him. This is called the earth witness gesture, and it refers to the episode in the life of the Buddha when he was challenged, like, prove to us that you are enlightened. Prove to us that you're extraordinary. In fact, I bet you can't. Who's the witness of your enlightenment? Who is the one who is witnessing your enlightenment? And he touched the earth and he said, the earth is my witness. And the earth then shook at that moment. So that's the way you're used to seeing the Buddha Shakyamuni. You're not used to seeing him in a crown and beautiful silk garments and things like this, holding the bell in his left hand and the vajra in his right hand, with wisdom next to his heart, because that's what the bell symbolizes, is wisdom. And the scepter in his hand symbolizes skillful means. So in a way, this Buddha is, you could call this Buddha the Buddha Shakyamuni in his primordial form, primordial enlightenment, which possesses wisdom, the bell, next to the heart. And skillful means the scepter, crossed as in mastery. The idea is that this is the form of primordial Buddhahood. And it came to us in the form of the monk, Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha. And then now it is, we see it in this form, the form of Buddha Vajradhara, Vajra holder, holding the bell and the Vajra, the scepter, in mastery, in a position of mastery. So you're seeing Shakyamuni, but not in the way you're used to seeing him. You're seeing him the way he was seen by the great Indian saint, Tilopa, who's depicted above my right shoulder here, in about 1,000 years ago. When Tilopa attained Buddhahood, he had a vision of the Buddha Shakyamuni, who spoke to him and gave him instructions on how to rest the mind and in its own nature. This practice became known as Mahamudra, and it is the main practice of our center now. And so that's why we have this. This is my theory as to why we have this particular Buddha. Because it is the symbol of the primordial awakening that each of us possesses within us that just needs to be uncovered. And the other reason I brought it up was because that was a mystery that Khenpo Rinpoche left us. He didn't tell us why he chose this for us. He chose these statues. And he didn't tell us why. So that means each of us is entitled to a guess. And my guess and your guess, they're equally valid. So that's my guess. But the reason I also bring up this wisdom and skillful means is because the Buddha possesses these, and people like Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche possessed wisdom and skillful means. They were not only wise, they knew how to use their wisdom. They knew how to help people. Everything you could ask him, he would know. So we lack that right now, which is why we feel so helpless sometimes when we're faced with decisions. We feel we lack this wisdom and this skill. And by lacking wisdom and skill, we don't know what to do, and we're afraid of making a mistake. In fact, His Eminence, one of my lamas, His Eminence, Tai Sita Rinpoche, said, he says, I think this is the cause for so much stress in the modern world. He said, in the old world, you were born into a family and that was your life. Your family was your life. Your family's profession was your profession, and you just followed what your family did. And so in that way, that everything was sort of decided for us in a way. He said now, in this modern world, he said, you have a lot more choices. And because you have so many choices, he said, you fear making a mistake in your choices. So this is where a lot of the stress that you experience these days comes from. It comes from not knowing how to make decisions and being afraid of making the wrong one. And so it's almost like they've described our situation pretty much succinctly and completely. But the good news is, even though we don't possess those skills of wisdom and skill, we don't possess wisdom and skillful means right now, we're working on them. And we're working on them in the way I described at the beginning here when I complimented everyone sitting quietly in this room to meditate. That's the first thing we're doing to help ourselves be better at making choices and decisions. We can get better. We can get better at making choices and decisions. We can get better at it by practicing meditation. We can allow the mind to come to rest on an object. We can allow it to come to rest on the breath. And by doing that and returning to that over and over and over again, we gain a skill. Maybe not the skill, but a skill. And that skill we gain is learning how to be with what is. Remember patience? Rinpoche said you can overcome everyone and everything with patience. And that's how we become patient. We're sitting in meditation, and everything's going just fine. We're with our attention. Our attention is with the breath, and we're really feeling good about it. And then we have a big, ugly thought that arises and oppresses us. Maybe it's a bad memory. Maybe it's something we're worried about, but a big, ugly thought comes up. And if we're lucky, we remember the technique, which is to notice that we are thinking, that we're no longer with the subject of the meditation, or object, of the meditation. And we can actually even label the situation thinking, and then we can let the thought go, and then it disappears and returns into the mind itself. And so, by doing that one thing, noticing and letting go of a thought, we've made a choice. Ding! We made a choice and a decision to pursue the technique of meditation. And this is how we learn how to let go. This is how we learn to let go of things. This is how we learn patience, one big ugly thought at a time. Each time we have a thought, notice it and let it go, and then return our attention to the breath. Every single time we do this over and over again, we choose patience. We choose what we want to be and do in that moment. Right now, I am going to not be doing this ugly thought. I am going to be doing attention. I'm going to be present with myself. And that choice is the choice we learn how to make over and over and over again in the practice of meditation. So we're getting better at making choices because we have to make them so many times. I mean, how many distractions can we have in a minute? Quite a few, as it turns out. But if we can continuously make those choices over and over again and make the healthy choice to return again and again and again, we get better at it. And maybe we'll have bad days when we're just scattered, but maybe we'll have good days where we notice, let go and return, notice, let go and return, notice, and so forth, over and over again, and we get better and better and better at it. And that shows us that we can do it. It shows us that we have the capacity to pay attention, and we have the capacity to return, and we have the capacity to make a good decision. It makes us less impulsive, if you think about it, because a lot of what happens in our mind is that we're very impulsive, and we make choices and decisions very impulsively, like, oh, I'll do that. Oh, no, this'll be better. Oh, no, this is better. And so we're just like enacting impulsiveness every day, all day long. But when we're sitting on the cushion and the choice is either to be attentive or not, it becomes a lot easier to make the choice to be attentive. And so, in fact, I had fun. I got to see Lama Tom yesterday. He's doing well, and you're going to see him. He'll be coming back doing Dharma talks again next month. And we were chatting about going shopping. and how shopping can be a very dangerous affair. This is a joke. You go to a really, really nice shop, a really nice shop. Maybe you're going to the discount store. I don't know, wherever you go. You go someplace, and you know what's on your list, but you end up with twice as much stuff in your basket. And I said, well, this may or may not surprise you. I worked at a grocery store. I worked at a grocery store through college. And I know why it is like that. Because the marketing people told us that the name for the rack of items that are right by the checkout counter where you are checking out is actually called the impulse rack. I joke you not, absolutely true. It's called the impulse rack because suddenly you want something. Suddenly, because it's there, suddenly you can take it. Oh yes, you have to pay for it, but you can take it, and you can take it right now. And so we had a big laugh about the impulse rack, and I said, okay, I gotta make sure I put that in my Dharma talk tomorrow. Because that's how it is for us. We're human beings and we like shiny things. And we are very easily distracted, so as a result, we take advantage of each other. It's sad, impulse racks, it's sad. And in fact, I read somewhere that convenience stores are laid out chaotically on purpose so that we'll be dazzled every time we go around a corner and then we'll forget why we came. So, and we'll buy more stuff. Anyway, what we do. But sitting in meditation makes us less impulsive, more capable of saying, do I really want that container of candy? Do I really want that thing? Do I really want that shiny thing? And being able to take that one step back from a decision and say, oh, do I really want to do that? Wow, it's like a gift. Somebody gave us a gift. We don't have to make a snap decision. We can actually think about it. And it's not going to be bad if we decide not to do it. And it's also not going to be bad if we decide to do it because we took a minute. We took a minute and thought it over and didn't just react. So I feel like meditation is the beginning of our training in skill and wisdom. Meditation is how we start training in skill and start training in wisdom. But then what's the next meditation we learn? The name of our center is Karma Teksum Choling. Karma is our family name because it deals with the Karma Kagyu tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. Teksum means 3 vehicles, and Chuling means Dharma, place. So the Teksum, the 3 vehicles, are the 3 styles of practice we do here. Quiet sitting meditation, compassion meditation, and mantra meditation. Those are the 3 kinds that we do here, and that's what the Teksum means in our name. So the next meditation we learn is compassion meditation. And what that does is it teaches us to use that attention that we've cultivated in quiet sitting meditation. It teaches us how to use that as a way of practicing a better inner attitude. And that better inner attitude is an inner attitude of compassion and love. Because right now, it's all about me, myself, and I. Everything's about me, myself, and I. And what if it wasn't about me, myself, and I? Because that's where we get a lot of our suffering from. I want this, and I'm not getting it. I don't want that, and I'm getting it. So we have this story that we're telling ourselves continuously, like there's color commentary going on 24/7 about me, myself, and I, and how's my story going? How is my story going? My story going well? So forth and so on. And what if something goes wrong for that story? Then we get angry. Or if somebody else's story appears to be going better than ours, then we get jealous. Or maybe we think that our story is better than somebody else's story, and there's our pride. So we have a lot of problems that come about from thinking only about me, myself, and I. So compassion meditation is where we rehearse thinking about other people for a change. I say rehearse because, baby steps. We may not be able to put others first just yet, but we can rehearse putting others first. And that's what we do in compassion meditation. As we breathe out, we think we give goodness to all beings. And we wish happiness for all of them. The ones we like, the ones we're not so crazy about, the ones that we actually see as problems. We imagine, we use our imagination to imagine extending goodness to all of them. That is the most rudimentary form of compassion meditation there is. It's just wishing for goodness for others on the out-breath. That's it. You can do more complicated forms of it, but this wishing for the benefit of others is just, it's okay. It sounds childlike. Like, oh, I want world peace, but the idea is, it sounds kind of childlike, childish, whatever, but it's what we all kind of wanted when we were kids. It's kind of like what we all wanted, happiness and goodness. We wanted that. Maybe we didn't get it, but it's what we wanted. And in a way, it's what we all still want. And recognizing that everybody is like us, that really leads us into understanding something we didn't understand before. So just practicing that wish to be of benefit to others, just practicing that, can change the game for us inside. It's no longer just about me, myself, and I. It's me, myself, and sometimes you, but me, myself, and sometimes you. But the idea is that by practicing this more and more, we begin to think about how other people are feeling, which is new. It's not just my story now. It's like, well, what's the story like for that person? What's the story that person is telling themselves about their life? The reason they're acting badly is because they're afraid, usually. Afraid. And that's where a lot of stuff comes from. Fear of not having, not getting, not being what you want to be or what you think you deserve to be, et cetera, et cetera. And so once we start understanding other people, then it's easier to be skillful and wise. Much easier to be skillful and wise because we see how what we feel is very much like what the other person is feeling. They're just like us in a way, even though we have built personas for them that are kind of like evil and so forth. That we could actually entertain the idea that they're just frightened children who need a hug. Now, we can't do that, unfortunately, because we're not in that position. But there are dangerous people that you wouldn't kind of want to approach. But you have to be realistic after all, right? But by the same token, at least this way, we don't have to hate that person. And we entertain the idea of not hating them for just a second as we breathe out happiness and goodness to them. And so this increases our level of skill. This increases our level of wisdom. And this then allows us to be more purposeful in our life. Lama Tom told me yesterday he's going to be talking about the study that hopefully you all read about this week. When he gives his next talk, he's going to talk about that. They did a study about how to find happiness in life, and it said, hey, have a purpose. Have a purpose. And all of the great traditions of the world, including Buddhism, have this idea of purpose. So, in any case, when we begin to have more purpose in our life, the byproduct of this feeling of purpose is wisdom and skillful means. Now, mantra practice takes us even farther, and I don't have enough time today to talk about that, but the idea that we do possess an enlightened essence that we can train in And the fact that mantra meditation uses the practices of visualization and mantra to make us physically, mentally, and verbally sort of dynamically involved in the uncovering of our Buddha nature, that's kind of cool. The idea that we can visualize ourselves as a Buddha or Bodhisattva and visualize ourselves benefiting others, that's really wonderful. That's really a wonderful technique. Not enough time to talk about it today, but it's something that you can learn about in class number 8 in the Way of the Buddha in our Buddhism education program. It's class number 8, mantra meditation. So now we can make better decisions because we're not impulsive as we were before, and we're more kind and loving toward ourselves and others, and we've changed our purpose and our inner story and inner narrative to being more kind and loving. Whew. But we're still not wise and still not skillful fully yet, so making decisions is still kind of difficult. So luckily the Buddha gave us a list of stuff to do and not to do, and yes, there's 10. I don't know what it is with 10. Don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he also gave us a list of 10 things to do, which I think is incredibly helpful. Instead of killing, save lives. Instead of lying, be truthful. Instead of stealing, give generously as you can. All of these things can help us change how we are in the world. He also gave us through the teachings of his disciples and then their disciples and their disciples and their disciples and their disciples, took the Buddha's words and put them into small commentarial booklets like this one, the 37 Actions of a Bodhisattva. This particular one, some of them may sound a little extreme, but we can at least take steps to go a little bit toward what a perfect bodhisattva would do. Bodhi means awakening, and sattva means a person who possesses the mind that wants to wake up. So a bodhisattva is like a saintly being who is taking the Buddha's teachings to heart and living them out in their own life. So like, here's one. Because, number 34, because harsh words disturb others' minds and cause the bodhisattva's conduct to deteriorate. Because harsh words disturb others' minds and cause the bodhisattva's conduct to deteriorate, abandoning harsh speech, which is unpleasant to others, is the bodhisattva's practice. Well, there goes my whole social media feed. Gosh darn, There goes all of social media. Dang. But you get the idea. Grandma used to say, if you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all. But Grandma, we love you, but it just didn't work out that way. Somebody else took over the world, and they said that was fun now. Anyway. But still, okay, everybody had a parent or an elder in your life who used to say, now, whenever you would go and say, but all my friends are doing it, they'd say, well, if your friend jumped off a cliff, would you jump off too? And the answer is, yeah, sure. Because we're kids and we don't realize the outcome of that. But right now we're kind of in this situation where somebody said being harsh and mean is cool. So we're at that part of the after-school special where the bullies are in charge, and the shy kids, we got a problem. Superman, if you're listening. So in any case, that is an example of how reading about a bodhisattva's actions can help us, even if we can't stop using harsh words. My other favorite one is the one about anger. It's number 20. Wonder how I knew that. If outer foes are destroyed while not subduing the enemy of one's own hatred, read that again. If outer foes are destroyed while not subduing the enemy of one's own hatred, enemies will only increase. Ooh. Therefore, subduing one's own mind with the army of love and compassion is the Bodhisattva's practice. So these sound kind of impossible, but if we even just take a tiny step in that direction, I have recently started using words like incremental change, just taking a tiny step towards something that is worthwhile and useful. Even if that's all we can do, fantastic. I know several of my Dharma friends have copies of this book, and there was this one sort of hard-nosed Lama, Himalayan Lama from the 20th century, all the way back there. And whenever he was asked, he was a bit of an iconoclast. And every time that somebody would say something kind of precious to him, like, "Oh, teacher, please teach me about compassion," he'd give them a copy of this book and said, "Read this out loud 1,000 times. And I have a couple of friends who did it, So, and it did change their life to be able to do that. So through the Buddha's words and the teaching and the commentaries, he's giving us guidelines about what kind of things are useful and what kind of things are not useful. And in this other great 19th century text, called The Great Path of Awakening, you may have heard of it, because I never shut up about it. It's a problem. The great 19th century scholar, meditation master, and saint, Jamgon Kongtrul the Great, said in his commentary about what's important. Those of you who are familiar with 12-step nomenclature and language know that the slogan, "How important is it?" which is where you're asked to reflect on how important something is before you get mad about it. How important is this? Well, in this book, The Great Path of Awakening, he comments on what's important. So he says, you're pretty lucky to be a human being in this day and age. You could have been an animal, you could have been born anywhere, but you're human and you've got a lot of potential, so listen up, this is how you conduct yourself. So he says, now that you've obtained a precious life and met the pure teachings, you should put the main points into practice in order to realize objectives of permanent significance. Ooh. So he said, and then he gives this decision tree, which you can write down and use. He said, aims for the future, for your future life, are more important than aims for this life. Now, this is more, of course, appropriate for an agrarian society where there wasn't a lot of upward mobility. But still, you can think about, we all try to provide for our kids because they are the most important things to us. But we never think about ourselves in our future life, because if reincarnation is real, we're coming back and we're going to do this again until we get it right. So why not be kind and good in this lifetime so that the person you're going to be in the future has a better life? I mean, we do this stuff for our kids, but we don't think to do it for ourselves. And that's what he's saying here. Try to become a better person right now while you can, because that will help your future life. So future life is more important than this one. The welfare of others, in the end, is more important than your own. This is just good customer service. Of practicing and teaching the Dharma, practicing is more important. Training in bodhicitta is more important than other practices. Further, intensive meditation on your teacher's instructions is more important than analytical meditation based on texts. And then sitting on your mat and training in meditation is more important than other kinds of activity. I can't tell my boss that, but actually I can. Anyway, but you may not be able to. But in the end, these types of things, the Buddha's teachings, his advice, these enlightened beings, their advice, the decision tree, all of these things can help us make better decisions until we can make better decisions for ourselves because we become enlightened beings, right? Until then, we've got all of these resources to help us make better decisions. And then lastly, people would always ask Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche for advice. Is this relationship good for me? Oh dear. They would ask him stuff like that. I need to change jobs. Is this job better for me or this job better for me? And so forth. And they would ask him all these kinds of pragmatic, but out of the realm of his experience, questions. And he gave really good advice because more than once I heard him say in the answer to a question like this, he said, do whatever helps your mind the most. Do whatever helps your mind the most, because our mind is the most important facet of our being. Our mind is so important. It's what directs all of our activities. It's what allows us to be in the world, and it allows us to manifest in the world. Yeah, do what helps your mind the most. And here's an example. A person came to him saying, look, I work in a zoo. True story, I was there when the person asked the question. I work in a zoo, and I'm like the reptile keeper at this zoo, and I have to feed freshly killed animals, and I have to kill them myself to the snakes. And my teacher said, be great if you could get a different job where you didn't have to kill things for a living, because he said that's probably not good for you. And the person eventually, by the way, did get another job. They eventually did, where they didn't have to kill animals, which is great. But until then, they made the choice, until they got that other job, they made the choice not to hand that task off to another person under their an underling. And the person said, the reason I didn't hand it off was because they're not Buddhist, I am. I can say a prayer to them, to those animals. Nobody else would. If I tried to tell my underlings to say a prayer for an animal before killing it, they wouldn't do it. They'd think it was silly. But they said, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to keep doing it until I don't have to do it anymore. I choose to take this on for them, because otherwise it's going to hurt them and they don't know it. That's really amazing. What an amazing story. And eventually they realized it would help their mind the most if they quit that job. And sometimes people get ready to make choices that are maybe not the best for them. Here's an example. A person came to Rinpoche, my teacher, and said, look, now that I've become Buddhist, I realize that the job I have, I'm an entertainer. I'm an entertainer. That's not really helping other people. Maybe I should go back to school and become a nurse or something where I can actually hands-on help people. And Rinpoche just looked at them and said, you're making a living now. Why would you throw your life into chaos for no reason? Student loans, why would you do that? You're making money now. Okay, so entertainment is not as lofty in your own mind as nursing would be, but look at it this way. You can take the money that you earn and go to a Dharma center and do Dharma practices and go on a retreat. And you don't have to worry about all of these little tiny things. And besides, it'll help your mind more to not be under the stress of being a student at your advanced age. Yeah, I know, ouch, right? So I'm really glad I had a chance to talk to you about this today. Because we started with Rinpoche being the perfect person because I felt that he was an enlightened being. And and how he advised people. And then I talked about how meditation, sitting meditation and compassion meditation, help us to be less impulsive, more patient, and to make better choices with our energy and our minds, and how to develop, rehearse compassion for ourselves and for others, and how that opens up a world of purpose to us. And I talked about how guidebooks like the 37 Practices and the Great Path of Awakening can give us, until we become Buddhas, they can give us some go-bys. They can give us some frameworks and go-bys for making decisions. And then finally, learning what is better for our mind, what gives us less stress, more happiness, and more serenity. That's going to be the most important thing. So I think I'll stop here, but we've got like 5 minutes. I talked a long time today, sorry. It happens like that sometimes. You write it out and you think, oh, that's not going to take very long, but it does. So if anybody has questions or comments or want to talk about a decision you made, come up to the question mic. We'll start with you. Yeah.
Thank you for that talk, Lama Kathy.
Okay, yeah, no thanks.
Can you talk a little bit about compassion meditation and what that looks like when we have somebody who we need to set really hard boundaries with, or continues trying to hurt us in our life, and we need to set that boundary but also hold space for compassion? What does that look like?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It is, when people are acting badly toward us, we have to, one of my teachers said, look, if someone is abusing you, you may need to get a safe distance away from them before you can even think about compassion for them. Because what he said was, your personal safety is much more important than anything else to begin with. Then when you get a safe distance from an abusive person, then you can start to work on compassion. But let's say it's not that kind. It doesn't rise to that kind of level of danger, personal danger to ourselves, but it's just aggravating. And Rinpoche said, think about how the other person is suffering. And that might help you to at least experience a little compassion for them. And he said, if that doesn't help, he said, you can remember that karma is real. And by remembering that karma is real and knowing that the person who is acting badly is accumulating terrible, terrible karma that will come to fruition for them someday. And he said, we tend to have doubts about karma, he said, because we see the robbers and the killers living happy lives, what appear to us to be happy lives. And they're getting away with their crimes and things like that. And he said the only reason we think like that is because we don't have the view of seeing what will happen to them in the future. That's not given to us to see. We're not going to be able to see that. So we think maybe it's not going to happen, but it will. He said we can be sure of that unless they turn away from evil actions and purify their negative karma through positive actions and specific practices that purify. He said, it's going to happen. We just aren't going to be able to see it. And he said, so maybe that will dislodge what one Lama called the ice block in our heart when it comes to other people. And he says we have to melt that ice block. This was Garchen Rinpoche, he put it that way. He said we've got like this block of ice in our heart sometimes for people. So I think that that's really the main thing. And the other thing is to keep the practice short and simple. When you're doing compassion meditation for someone, you can imagine giving them goodness in this sort of generic way for a short period of time. Doesn't even have to be a few minutes. Just do it a few times. Imagine as you breathe out that you give goodness to them. And then he spoke about a specific thing. He said, now, sometimes there are people in your life who, they just take a disliking to you, and there's no real reason. And they cause you trouble, and it seems like there's no real reason. And he said, I have to remind people at times like that that karma is real, and that these people may be people that you harmed previously who are now coming to extract a karmic debt. They're your karmic creditors from previous lives. And he said, so, special meditation for that, he said. He said, what you do for this special meditation is that you think that this person is in front of you, this person you're in conflict with. And you pray to the Buddha and imagine the Buddha is above and between you. Don't ask for protection from that person. Ask for equal protection for yourself and for that person. That's how you start. He said, create an imaginary gift in your mind. And in this imaginary gift, you put in everything you have, everything you own, all of your goodness, and then tie it up and then send it through your mind to the person who thinks you owe them something. And imagine they receive it. And he said, do this every day, like once a day, every day, until you feel different. It will not change them, but it will change what of them is in you. It will help your resentment, because you're going to be gifting them. And those of you who are 12-step people, you will know about the practice in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that encourages you to pray for 30 days for someone who you're in conflict with to have everything that you want for yourself. And it is so interesting to me that my teacher gave me this imaginary gift-giving exercise, which, by the way, is in this book. And, in a different form, but it's in this book. He gave this imaginary gift-giving exercise, and I think it's incredibly powerful. So you can try those things and see if they work. If not, come back and we'll ask again, and we'll find some other things. Okay? All right, thanks. Because of time, this will be our last question.
Hi, Lama Kathy.
Hey, good morning.
So I heard you say learning how to be with what is patience.
Uh-huh.
I've also heard Pema Chodron say, define ego as that which resists what is. So is it fair to say that cultivating patience is also a practice to overcome ego?
A practice to work on ego? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. There's no question about it. And here's another quote that just kind of knocks me out about patience. And that's that, because we want something, right? And when we don't get that one thing we need or that something we need, we lose patience. It's like, okay, I'm done dealing with this, however we state that. And when Anilodro Lama was here in the old building a number of years ago, she said, patience is not putting up with someone. As she said, patience is being open to how other people are, which is really, because that's how they are. They are like that. It's like you've got to be open to the way they are. You can't make them be different. I just thought that was so good. Again, it's all about relaxing our demands, because ego's got demands, stuff it wants. It's like, like all those famous contracts that entertainers are supposed to have, asking for specific kinds of water and things like that. It's wild, but there you go. Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, all of that will reduce ego fixation, which reduces suffering. Surprise, right? It's like, when we reduce ego fixation, when we reduce or relax our demands that the world give us a cookie or whatever, when we reduce that, it just like changes things. It's like, okay, I can work with this now. And so anyway, for a lot of people, that's what tells them that their meditation practice is working, because the stuff that used to bother them a lot does not bother them as much. Doesn't mean they care less. It doesn't mean that they care any less. It just means that it bothers them less. They still care, but it's like, as Shanti Deva, another one of those great writers, said, if you can change a bad situation, why worry? Why be upset? And if you can't change a bad situation, why worry? Why be upset? It's like, I love that. Well, because we're stopping here, we'll stop with the dedication of merit, because this is another Buddhist thing we like to do. We like to we like to give away everything, including the goodness we generate from going to classes and meditating. And so we'll recite this only in English because of the shortness of time. We'll start with the words "by this merit" and dedicate all of our goodness to beings who couldn't be here today, and that all goes well for all in the world. By this merit, may all attain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy, wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. The courageous Manjushri, who knows everything as it is, Samantabhadra, who also knows in the same way, and all the bodhisattvas that I may follow in their path, I completely dedicate all this virtue. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you. Hopefully we'll see some of you this week. Khenpo Sanjay arrives tomorrow. His first teaching is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. This is going to be great. It's going to be the first time many of us will have heard him teach in English. It's going to be kind of exciting. He's been translating for years, so it'll be interesting to see. He's speaking tomorrow night at 7, also Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night. The Monday talk is about Buddhism in the modern world. The Tuesday talk is about the Mahamudra lineage supplication that we recite before the Chenrezi and other sadhanas. And then Wednesday and Thursday is about Buddha nature, how we all have it, and how we can uncover it. So even if you can just come for one, that's great. And you can also go to our Eventbrite and scroll all the way to the bottom to see the Zoom attendance. You can do that for as little as a $1 donation. So thank you, everyone. Okay, see you next time.